Good morning.
Can't hear you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Wait, can you all hear Bill? Because I can't hear him.
No, we can't hear him.
Okay.
No, we can't.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Finally got this thing to work. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Everyone healthy, happy?
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. How are we all doing?
Good.
Well, I didn't get that listing.
Oh.
You didn't?
No. And they had, I told them 600,000. I am confident in that. I know this area and have worked in this area more than the other agents.
Okay.
They ended up getting a fifth agent with
Jeez.
Century 21. And they had, so I was at 600. She told them 645. She's sold 2 houses in the last year in Canton. Her specialty is Pickens County. And anyway, she's listing it at 645. They had prices all the way up to 709.
So you were one of 5 agents that they interviewed?
Yes,
Did you give them the lowest price?
I did. And I told he emailed me yesterday and said, you know, you gave us the lowest price and blah blah blah, you know, up to 709. And I said, I saw the look on your face when I said 600. You grimaced. And I said, I had to be transparent with you. You can't overprice a house right now. And I said, and you can't underprice a house. If you would have listed it at 600, you would have, if you would have listed it at 600, you would have had a lot more exposure than listing at 645, because you would have got people looking at the 6. And anyway, but I said that, but I said, I would rather make you mad with a low listing price than overprice your house, put it on the market, 6 months later, it still hasn't sold and you're mad at me. I said, I'd rather make you mad upfront than, you know, for 6 months be calling you saying, we really need to lower the price.
So 2 thoughts on that. Number 1, don't repeat his phrasing. So he thinks it's a low list price, but don't validate that. Don't say I'd rather give you a low list price.
Well,
say I'd rather help you understand the market value.
Right. Yep, that makes sense. But you know, I said I study this market every day, and I would study it in depth for it. But I was disappointed. But you know what? I'm not going to. Oh, the other thing was I stood there in the kitchen and told them we have the largest, the most agents in the country, and we do the most transactions.
Right.
And he's his boss that he's moving to Texas to work for, and is not giving him a relocation package or anything. He is helping him with the cost of the move, but he said he would rather Mike go with a national broker. I was like,
He referred to Keller Williams as not a national broker.
yes.
This guy's like he's not even thinking properly.
I know.
That you didn't get that listing right now. It'll probably come back to you, Kathy. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So here's what I would do. I would make sure that you help him understand that once he's signed with another broker, that you are restricted in the a type and amount of communication that you have with him, right? So
Yeah.
you like I don't want you, if you're not going after him next week and 2 weeks from now, it's not because you forgot about him or don't care. It's because that's an ethical issue. So you just say, hey, while you're under contract with another broker, I can't initiate any type of follow-up or communication. I can receive calls from you. So please, if you have any questions, call me.
Okay.
Okay. But the fact that I'm not reaching out to you while you're listed with another brokerage is not a display of the fact that I don't care about your goals. It's a fact that I have ethical standards that I have to uphold to. But please understand that the second you want another opinion or the second you are interested in working together, I want you to call me. Now, interestingly enough, this guy owns a $600,000 house, right?
Right.
And this is a slight sidebar, but he owns a $600,000 house. So let's make a couple of assumptions about him. Okay, he's probably some type of supervisor or vice president or some type of sub-executive or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And they're not even offering him a relocation or her a relocation package, right?
Right.
So what does that tell us? The market's soft.
Yeah.
Okay, the financial markets are soft. The job markets are soft. And so in a time where we're seeing evidence like right there in front of our faces that even for a $600,000 type, supervisor, whatever you want to call him, they're not willing to butter his bread.
Right.
They're basically saying, hey, you got to leave here and go to Texas, and that's on you. Right?
Right.
And as a result, that should be proof enough that there's not going to be $600,000 people lining up with huge amounts of confidence in their job and their employment to come and buy his overpriced listing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
The other thing too is that, Carrie Veal texted me yesterday and we spoke on Sunday. She's got 2 properties that didn't appraise.
Yeah. I saw that when she said that last night. I went, wait a minute.
Yeah.
She said that to me. I thought, not Bill, Mike needs to know that.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday she said her deal came in because she knows my house across the street is getting an appraisal. It was yesterday. Her deal came in $16,000 less than her price on appraisal. And it's because it's a soft market. I said the banks are just protecting themselves. We all know this, but
but that's against the law. And not only that, she had another one that came in appraised $35,000 less.
Yeah. It's alarming.
I'm having a lot of them price lower as well too. So I'm experiencing the same thing.
So you price your house at 709 when it's only valued, the market calls for 600. I mean, good luck having someone come out of pocket for that difference.
Well, they're only pricing it at 645.
Okay.
But a house across the street sold last year for 620. It has 1,000 square feet more, and it had a pool.
Oh wow.
So anyway, it's just, and it was 620. So.
Well, don't be afraid to share these stories. Your colleagues, several of them we've already identified, are having appraisal issues, and so don't be afraid to share those. Now, when the story comes from somebody other than yourself, and you can mention somebody else's name, we have an agent in our office named Carrie who had this situation happen, and you can always use that phrase like, "Do you mind if I share a concern with you?"
Yeah.
Right. Before you go in there guns a-blazing, telling them that, they're wrong and you're right, just say, I hear exactly what you're saying, but do you mind if I share a concern with you? Right? Because at the end of the day, everybody, they care about 2 things. We've said this a lot. Actually, I don't think I've said it so much, but I've heard it a lot, which is people care about 2 things. They want to look good and be right. right?
Good
And
old.
so, and so don't tell them they're wrong. Just share a different perspective. Because the minute you tell them they're wrong, it's confrontational.
Right.
Right. And then they're like, oh, this woman just wants a quick commission, and she's going to try to, make the home, sell for lower than it's worth. But you got to be very careful about that very first thing I said about using the same wording they're using. When you agree with them, use the same words. When you don't agree with them, don't. Right. So if he thinks your list price suggestion of 600 is low, don't validate it. Don't say, I gave you a low suggestion. Say, I gave you a suggestion that is comes from 15 years of real estate sales experience in this area, and the comps that are here in this stack here. Should we go review them again together?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts on any of those ideas, guys?
Oh, I was just looking back at the email. I did say I wanted to be as transparent with you as I possibly could be about the condition of this market and what overpricing a house would do to your bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
You grimaced when I saw the look on your face when I said 600,000. You grimaced. Your house will sell. I wanted to sell it as quickly as possible, getting you as much as possible, maybe even more than that list price. You can't underprice a house. So what would you have said differently?
I would have done my absolute best to have that conversation on the phone, or maybe even over Zoom, because the way that when you say that, what I hear is that the person saying it has a genuine interest in my financial bottom line. When I read it, totally lost.
Well,
Heather, what were you going to say?
Can you mute the masses?
Mute the masses, yes. Okay.
Okay, I'm done talking. Somebody else needs.
Okay, so I'm just going to mute everyone. If you want to say something, please unmute yourself. So I think, by the way, we're having a class at 11 o'clock today. The GLG class is going to be on appraisals, and we're going to have a gentleman from DS Murphy, I believe it's Scott Murphy, that's going to be speaking about how to overcome these issues, how to appeal low appraisals, how to do your best to prevent low appraisals, basically how to be as strategic and as purposeful about avoiding these issues as you possibly can. I always remember that the results of the appraisal are simply one person's opinion of value on that day at that moment, right? And what we remember when we set expectations, then it redefines exactly how everyone looks at this idea. So let's say, for example, that you don't set any expectations with your buyer, and then the appraisal comes in low. So immediately, let's say the contract price is $350 and the appraisal is $330. Okay, so immediately the buyer does not understand what's going on with the appraisal, doesn't understand the risk that they've taken, doesn't understand what the implications of this are, and most likely just thinks that you coerce them into paying more than the place is worth. So in order to rescue that, it's going to be a real tall task. If you have set it up with the buyer ahead of time to say, look, so an appraiser is going to come out, they represent the bank or the lender, and their job is to triple check the value of the home. And what we're going to see is a report that is simply one person's opinion of price on that day. And sometimes these things end up creating a headache for us in the transaction, and sometimes they don't. And here's the deal. Me and you have evaluated what we believe is the appropriate fair market price for the home, and that's ultimately what the contract price is. Okay. And you may find this home to be more valuable for a number of personal reasons. But what this is doing is it's just protecting the lender. So if by chance it comes in at price or above price, we got no problem. We keep moving on. If by chance it comes in low, here's what we do. And here's why we put a certain number of days in the appraisal contingency. And depending on what type of loan they're going to get, you're going to go back and ask for the appraisal to be, I'm sorry, the sales price to match the appraisal to be lowered. And if they say yes, then we go forward. If they say no, then you have the ability to leave, or you can come to the table with the difference. So meanwhile, I mean, I know some of us know this, but when we explain even the most basic of concepts to our buyers, first of all, it puts them at ease and it lets them know what to expect. And it makes sure that if something does come up, that number one, they know that you've got their back and you're on their team, right? And number two, that you're not going to let them overpay for the property if you can avoid it, right? And you're going to do the best you can to save the deal. Because at the end of the day, they picked that home at that price over every other option in the marketplace. Okay. Now, back when we were doing multiple offers like crazy in the last 4 or 5 years, you know, I would always say, look, don't even worry about the front end. We got to get the home first. We don't even get to fight over the appraisal if we don't win the first phase of this, right? So yeah, we're not going to go crazy here, but let's focus on having an appraisal contingency and getting and winning, right? Let's win the multiple offer. Now, if we got a multiple offer and it goes up a few $1,000s above list price, and then there's an appraisal issue, you know, that is you could have offered less, you just wouldn't have won. So what do you think about that, right? I forget who it was earlier last week. We talked a little bit about adjusting the list or the interest rate up slightly to reduce the closing cost. So there's a lot of different ways that you can attempt to reconcile a high appraisal, right? So if the buyer needs a closing cost paid for and therefore they're having a hard time, you know, lowering the price to match the appraisal and they want to lower the closing cost, but they can't do that because they're cash poor, then you can adjust the interest rate. So there's a lot of different ways that you can tweak it to make sure that the lender's happy and all the buyer and the sellers are happy. Does that make sense?
Can you repeat that, Bill?
Yeah, so let's say, for example, that the sales price is $200,000 and the seller is paying $6,000 in closing costs. So that's a net to the seller of $194. To the seller, it's essentially the same as just taking $194 and paying no closing costs. The only difference is the commissions, basically. Okay, so whether it's a net of $194, sales price $194, closing cost $0, or sales price $200 and closing cost concession $6,000. To the seller, it's essentially the same. Again, the only difference is the number of dollars they pay the commission on. For a buyer, it's a huge difference because in one scenario, the 206, they're essentially financing their closing cost, right? Meaning they don't have to bring that extra cash to the table. If they get 194 and no closing costs, then they do. So they're going to have to bring real cash to the table. And somebody that generally speaking, of course, if you're going to buy a $200,000 house and you're not an investor, you're probably not rolling in cash, right? You're probably, pinching pennies to get to the closing table. Okay. Again, it's not a judgment. It's just I've seen more scenarios with that than otherwise. Okay. So if, for example, the appraisal comes in at 194 and the sales price is 200 with 6,000 in closing, what we essentially did is inflated the sales price to accommodate the $6,000 in closing. And so the seller comes back and says, hey, you're asking me to lower the price to 194. I'm only getting 194. And now I've got a $6,000 problem because the appraisal is low. To which I would say, well, we wouldn't even have a contract if you didn't agree to pay the $6,000 because my client needs the $6,000, right? So how are we going to figure this out? So the seller says, well, I can't do anything about it. So you can either Bring $6,000 difference to the table, or you can leave the contract. I don't care, but I'm not giving you another cent, right? Which in this market would probably be stupid. At 200,000, maybe not, but at 400,000, that would be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. If you haven't figured it out, you've been inside your house for a month, guys. Okay? There's 10 million people that have lost their job. Don't be an idiot. Okay? It's time to sell. All right. Now, the buyer then could go back to their lender and say, I need to lower these closing costs, right? And to which the lender could say, okay, well, instead of giving you a 3.75 interest rate, we're going to give you a 4% interest rate, and then we can lower the closing costs because we'll collect it a different way. Make sense? And that will impact their monthly payment, but they might be able to stomach, $20 or $30 more per month in payment than they would in bringing $6,000 to the closing table because they really want to buy that house then. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay.
It makes sense. I just got I put in an offer on a home.
Nice.
My husband and I are buying. And thank you, Heather. She's been a lifesaver. She's been helping me out quite a bit. And last night it went binding. So it's pretty much going into that next phase right now. So I may have more questions that come up, and I will be reaching out. But that's why it was so interesting to me. We're waiting right now. So.
Right. So for a buyer, the first, you obviously you have to be able to afford to close, right? But if you're in a competitive situation, you want to give the seller the cleanest deal you can.
Right.
Right. It would be nice for the seller to pay for a $500 home warranty, but if you really want one, you can buy one after the fact. You got to win first.
Right. Exactly.
Don't lose a deal over freaking home warranty.
Got that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I used to have like a little kind of an account, so to speak, I used to have around $1,000 in it. And it was essentially just like, make this problem go away money. Right? It's like, oh, we got a backward electrical outlet. No one wants to pay for it. Will you guys just shut up? Here's $100. I can't handle you complaining about a backward electrical outlet anymore. It's over. I'm paying for it.
It was the Bill Winkwald slush fund.
Yeah, I'm serious because I didn't have the patience for that little crap. Right? We're buying and selling a $500,000 house here. Can we not talk about electrical outlets?
Mm-hmm.
You both can afford it. Quit fighting me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I know I'm on my soapbox a bit, but I just didn't want to put up with stuff like that. Right? I had a story. Oh my gosh, Pam, I don't know if you ever met this guy. Is a new home construction. I'll only take 1 minute with this. New home construction, and the lady that was at the design center was relatively new, and so she didn't know like every single upgrade to share with my buyer when he went to the design center. And he later found out that there was a master bath vanity that had like a makeup counter, okay, for his wife. It was like a dual vanity, but one of them didn't have the counter and one of them did. So he found out that after he had already selected the one without a makeup counter, that there was one with the makeup counter. And this guy was pissed that he wasn't offered the one with a makeup counter. Obviously, totally out of my control, right? And every time we talked on so we got a bid on what it would cost, and if it was like 2 inches longer, which meant the shower had to be rearranged. It was just the plumbing had to be recut. It was just a huge freaking mess. And the whole thing was going to cost like $500 different. And every single time he got on the phone with me, he was asking me about this. And finally I said, let me ask you a question. I'm going to make a deal with you. You're going to agree never to talk about the vanity again. And I'm going to agree to pay for it. Okay, I'm going to pay for it. You're going to keep your mouth shut forever about it. Do you have a deal?
Only to tell people how great his realtor is because he save the day by getting the vanity. That's the only time he can talk about it.
That's right. That's right. And I said, I'm serious. You bring it up one more time, you're paying for it. You keep your mouth shut, I'm paying for it. And he said, deal. I said, great, done. And he got the vanity, never said a word about it, and we moved on. I'm just not going to let little stuff get in the way of getting these people what they want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we all have to save a deal one way or another. I mean,
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting throwing cash at every single problem.
No.
Like, but I'm like, sometimes it just gets on my nerves. Okay, so we got a couple of things going on that I just want to chat briefly about. Number one is I sent you out a link for Bold Pivot. So Bold Pivot starts on, is it the 4th or the 5th of May? It's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Tuesday and Thursday are what they call the classroom. And Wednesday, Friday is what they call the coach's corner, which is a little bit more interactive. It's from 2 to 4 days a week for a month. Bold is normally $799. This is $99. Okay, I'm not positive, although I'm almost positive that the Market Center is going to reimburse 100% of the $99 at your first closing after Bold. Okay, if they elect not to, I will do that personally. Okay, so you front the $99. Once you have a closing that happens after Bold, you get it back. Okay. And there'll be like all the materials will be printable and all that stuff. Somebody had asked what's different about 2.0 Bold versus this one. This is a pivot, right? We're entering into a shift most likely. It's going to be the market of the moment. It's going to be scripts. It's going to be techniques. It's going to be suggestions. It's going to be best practices for number one, how to deal with a shifting market, and number two, how to deal with everything virtually. And it's gonna the purpose of Bold is to help you get in establish habits and routines so that you can improve the quality of your personal life and your business life. So my hope is, it's a big ask, that everyone will choose to enroll in Bold. Okay, Kathy, you're on video.
I know. I just realized I was not on mute, and I was clicking around looking for my Bold receipt because I did it last night, but
Nice. Okay.
I haven't. So I was going back over to look at it and said,
your face was perfectly matched with what I was saying, and I was like,
that's
oh,
what
man.
you said. I was like, because I thought I did. I was thinking, I know I did it.
So put it on your calendar, please. You can enroll probably anytime over the next 2 weeks or so. At the worst, I will pay you back personally the $99 if the Market Center doesn't do that. I don't want to put it on the Market Center if they say no, don't judge them, but I'm going to make sure it happens personally. Okay, so please make sure that's a part of your plan. Just a reminder, we are calling people with the last name that starts with B and the last name that starts with E. B as in bird, E as in elephant, and texting people with the last name that starts with W as in winter. And I'm going to hop off this call. Oh, by the way, you guys didn't stay on the call yesterday. Everyone dipped.
We chatted a bit, and then I hung up and did my own lead gen.
Okay, just mute yourself.
Okay.
So you guys can hang out if you'd like. Otherwise, I'm going to hop off and go to the leadership call. I'll be back at 9:30. We're doing the launch group at 9:30, the emerging group at 10, and the growth group at 10:30. We'll do half-hour things. Just a quick reminder, I will be away from my phone, email, and text messages starting tonight through Thursday night. And in the event that you have any questions about anything, you can reach out to our new office Market Center agent mentors, who are Kathy Ray. So congratulations, by the way, Kathy.
I love helping people.
Yes, yes, yes. And Susan Corley. And as always, Pam is more than happy to take any of your calls and walk you through whatever you need
And
help with.
and we will too.
And Marie as well. Welcome back, Marie.
Thank you.
Marie.
Thank you.
Jan is very helpful too. We've got a room full of givers. I just want you to understand that there's no mandate that these people help. They just want to help because they're givers, and because there was a time that people gave to them considerably, and as a result, they are that's on their heart, and I just want to voice my appreciation publicly for that. We are very close to the 15th of the month. I'll end on this. We are very close to the 15th of the month. That is tomorrow. So a quick reminder, if I have not seen your 135 or your economic model, please, please, please send it to me. Even if it is the world's worst first draft, just send it to me and I'll help walk you through the next steps, okay? Because it's difficult to know what the 15th of the month protocol is if you don't even know what the first of the month protocol is, right? So let's establish what the expectations are from a daily perspective and a monthly perspective. So when the 15th comes and there's a chance you may not be on track, then we need to reevaluate to say, I'll pick on you, Heather. Heather needs to do, I'm just coming up with these numbers out of the sky, but Heather needs to go on 3 appointments a month. Okay, 15th of the month comes, she hasn't done any. Okay, these are not true numbers. This is just a story. Okay, her goal is to have 3 appointments a month. 15th of the month happens, she hasn't had any appointments. So what can we assume? We can assume that whatever she's doing in the first 15 days of the month wasn't working as expected. I'm not saying it wasn't fruitful. I'm not saying it wasn't productive. I'm just saying it's not giving us the results we need. And so we either need to make an adjustment or we need to double down on the amount of time we're spending working, because otherwise we're just not going to hit our goal. And when we're off track, we got 2 options. Number one is we change the goal. $100,000 is not so important to me anymore. I'll be cool with 50. I don't know. You tell me. Is that true? Will you be able to make the investments you want to make? Will you be able to support your family the way you want to support them? Will you be able to pay for college? Will you be able to get out of debt? Will you be able to retire when you want? Or are we going to change the activities that you do each day so that you don't have to change the goal? Make sense? I want to fight for every one of y'all. Okay. All right. I'll see you back here in half an hour.
Hey, wait.
Yes,
Bill,
ma'am.
I need your help on a contract. So when you get back, can you answer a couple questions for me?
Yep. So I'll be back here for you at 10:30, and otherwise we can chat right afterwards. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, Bill.
Mm-hmm.